What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Young Corey, aka Young CJ, aka Young Corvelli, man. And today we'll be going over my first sports-related video. We will be going over the highly anticipated 2019 NBA offseason. I'll be giving my thoughts and analysis on some of the biggest moves that will affect the fate of the NBA. Some questionable decisions, some great decisions, I believe, and some slept-on decisions, and just some big moves that I feel like will change the fate of the NBA. Now, I kind of been putting this video on the back burner just because I wanted to make sure that there were no more moves after I made this video. And with this last trade of Russell Westbrook, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any significant moves other than that one. So I feel like this is a great time to put this out and give my thoughts on the upcoming season. Now, we're also going to briefly touch on the draft and go over some coaching hires and coaching fires here and there. And we're just going to go ahead and reflect on the offseason as a whole.
Now, the first place I want to start with the 2019 NBA draft. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a college basketball expert, so therefore it's going to be hard for me to analyze every pick that every team made, so I'm simply not going to do that. But what I will say is two teams really stuck out to me as to having really strong drafts. Being the obvious choice, the New Orleans Pelicans acquiring Zion Williamson and Jackson Hayes. Their future is looking pretty bright. And also, don't sleep on the Atlanta Hawks, because the Atlanta Hawks acquired not only DeAndre Hunter, but Cam Reddish. Two wings who I believe can become nice starters in today's NBA. So when you can acquire two starters, especially two wings in the same draft, that's a pretty good day for a team. One team I don't really understand is I don't understand what Boston is doing. The problem with your team last year is you had too many wings. You had Jaylen Brown, you had Jason Tatum, you had Gordon Hayward, all looking for big minutes, and you go out and draft another wing in Romeo Langford, knowing that you're probably going to lose both of your point guards, being Kyrie Irving and Terry Rozier, in free agency. Why not try to move up and get Darius Garland or Kobe White? Or if you can't acquire another point guard, why not just trade the pick entirely? But drafting another wing is probably the worst possible thing that you can do. Now, I had big hopes for the Sacramento Kings being a borderline playoff team next year, because you got De'Aaron Fox coming to his own as a great guard. You got Marvin Bagley balling out. You got Willie Cauley-Stein as a nice rim protector. And you bring back Harrison Barnes for some nice veteran leadership. And he's also going to give you about 17 to 20 a game. But I really don't understand why you go out and get Luke Walton, being that Luke Walton has never even proven to me that he's a great NBA coach. He also hasn't proven to me that he can develop NBA talent. Well, he also hasn't proven to me that he can develop young talent with his job in LA. When you really think about it, every great young player that Luke Walton has had has really balled out once he's left the team. So how do I know Luke Walton isn't the problem stunning young talent? Yes, he did a great job with the Golden State Warriors the year they lost the championship and went 73-9. But that team had already been together for multiple years and won a ring the previous year. So how much coaching do you really have to do for that team? Now, don't be surprised when the Indiana Pacers emerge as a 4 to 5 seed, being that they're getting back their best player and all-star quality guard in Victor Oladipo. But they also went out and got a nice 3-and-D guard, a 50-40-90 guy, and Malcolm Brogdon from Milwaukee. And they also went out and acquired TJ Warren, who not a lot of people know about, being that his career's been lost with the Phoenix Suns, and they lose a lot. Well, he's actually a pretty good wing who can give you 17, 18 a night and kind of take the scoring load off of Victor Oladipo. So don't be surprised when they vastly improve and jump up to a 4 to 5 seed. I really like the Pistons' move of going out and getting Derrick Rose, being that he's had a year to regain his confidence in his legs and show that he can really ball at a high level at this point in his career, despite the injuries. I've been killing Blake Griffin for a long time, especially when he was in LA, because his offense just consisted of dunks, putbacks, and highlights and whatnot. Whereas now he's really expanded his game to the new NBA. He can hit you with the mid-range. He can step out and hit a three. He has decent handles. So Blake Griffin has really expanded his game, and I'm really looking forward to see what the Pistons can do next year. As for the Pelicans, we all know that their future is looking pretty bright with the large haul they got from the Lakers in the AD trade and the acquisition of Zion Williamson and Jackson Hayes. Although I do still have concerns for Zion Williamson's weight, I want to see him keep his weight down so he can remain effective and light on his feet in the NBA. But that still has time to be seen. I really like the acquisition of David Griffin. They now have a basketball mind actually running all the operations in the Pelicans and not making terrible decisions. So I'm excited to see what the Pelicans can do in the future now that they actually have someone who knows basketball in their front office.
As for the Celtics, I really like the addition of Kemba Walker. I don't love it, but I really like it, being that Kemba has been in a losing situation his entire career. Michael Jordan was ruining his career over in Charlotte, and now he has the opportunity to win a lot of games and make deep playoff runs with the Boston Celtics. I believe he's going to have the right attitude. It won't be like Kyrie. Even though he can do a lot of things that Kyrie can do, he doesn't bring the negativity in the locker room that comes with a distressed Kyrie Irving. However, the biggest question I have about Boston is, what's their ceiling? Second round of the playoffs? Like, how far is how far is Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum going to take you? Because Jason Tatum is still kind of a baby, and I mean, Kemba Walker is what, the 6th, 7th best point guard in the league? So how far can they really take you? Does this guarantee you a first or second round exit in the playoffs? Because I don't think you're getting to Eastern Conference Finals with this bunch. I'll be getting to the Utah Jazz later in the video, but the Boston Celtics and the Utah Jazz are very similar to me. They have very common themes, and that is they're going to be great regular season teams, win a lot of games, probably finish as a top 3 or 4 seed, but at the end of the day, they don't have the star power to make deep enough playoff runs. They don't have the star power to take on Giannis, Philly, KD when he gets healthy with Brooklyn. As for the Jazz, they don't have the star power to tackle LeBron and AD, Kawhi and PG. So, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Now, the Warriors did acquire D'Angelo Russell, but I wouldn't be surprised if they flipped him approaching the deadline for another wing, for another quality wing to add to their offense. I didn't really love this for D'Angelo Russell because now he's on a win-now team. I really wanted to see D'Angelo Russell go into free agency and sign with the Mavericks because D'Angelo Russell with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, that's kind of a nice big 3 going into the future. And it also would have been kind of ironic because now that the Spurs' future is kind of sputtering, we don't really know what the Spurs is going to do. The Mavericks would be the one with the big 3. And if you really think back to about a decade ago when the big 3 in San Antonio kind of ganged up on Dirk for his entire career, it's kind of poetic justice for the Dallas Mavericks to have a big 3 and kind of shit on the Spurs. But, you know, we'll see where D'Angelo Russell goes into the future.
As for the Warriors themselves, I believe this is a very important year for Steph Curry. I expect Steph Curry to return to MVP status because at this point, you don't have KD to lean on anymore. I also believe that Kevin Durant kind of saved Steph Curry's legacy. When you look at that first ring, that team beat LeBron when the second player was Matthew Dellavedova. Then the next year, they followed up by losing to the Cavaliers in Game 7 after going 3-1 and going 73-9 in the season. Then you get Kevin Durant and you pile on 2 more rings. So even though Steph is definitively the best and most valuable point guard in the NBA, I believe that he's still unproven as the best player on a championship team. Yes, he did win that ring before Kevin Durant got there, but as I just stated, LeBron's second best player was Matthew Dellavedova. I haven't seen Steph Curry really ball out in the NBA Finals when it's just him and no Kevin Durant. So this year is kind of going to tell me a lot, especially when I don't really expect them to do anything because Klay Thompson isn't going to be there. They'll probably make it to the second round. They're not going to fall off the face of the earth just because they lost Kevin Durant. But I wouldn't be surprised if they flip D'Angelo Russell for another wing, maybe like the Bucks aren't giving up Chris Middleton, but if they can acquire another wing to pair with Klay, Draymond, and Steph, that wouldn't really surprise me. But we'll see what they do. Now, I actually have an unpopular opinion on the Knicks free agency. It would be too easy to get on this platform and say the Knicks are trashed and they don't know what they're doing. They had a terrible offseason because they missed out on KD, missed out on Kyrie, and paid Julius Randle big money. That would be too easy. But when you really look at it, you could also really say the Knicks offseason was kind of half full because what you didn't do, what the Knicks are usually prone to do, you didn't go out and pay average players big money. You didn't go out and pay a Joakim Noah 4 years, $80 million. Now, you did go out and get Reggie Bullock $15 million. You did go out and get Taj Gibson and Elfrid Payton to about $15, $20 million each. But the thing is, it's only 2-year contracts. You know what I'm saying? As in next year, well, the year after next, you have the ability to get out of those contracts. next year's free agency is pretty trash. So you don't even really want to participate in next year's free agency. So 2 free agencies from now, there's going to be a lot of players, some of the top players in the NBA, Bron, Kawhi, Paul George. That offseason is going to be a pretty stacked offseason. So it kind of gives you the opportunity to run it back and try again at getting one of these marquee free agents, being that you missed out on KD and Kyrie. So I really don't believe the Knicks offseason was a wash. It wasn't terrible. They did miss out on some big names because they did miss out on some big names they've been plotting on, but they didn't go out and panic and spend money, big money on average players. I believe that's the worst thing you can do. Let me make this very clear. I think that's the worst thing you can do is go out and give average players big money, because what that does is that cap straps you and makes you unable to go out and sign really good players, and it forces you to kind of be average for the next couple of years. It really lowers your ceiling. You're not winning any playoff series with average players. You have to have top 5 players on your team to win these games, to win these championships. I know it can look like the Black Plague hit because you missed out on KD, you missed out on Kyrie, you didn't get Zion, you got stuck with RJ Barrett, and all you really got was Julius Randle in free agency. But it's not that terrible. Hear me out. Now, the Knicks have adopted a mentality that I really agree with, and that's that only superstar players will be getting max contracts. That's how you win, honestly, because when you give great players, when you give second and third tier players max contracts, the most you're gonna be is a first or second round playoff team. All right, you're not winning no ring with a second or third tier player as your leader of your team or your best player of a team. When you go out and you sign Joakim Noah to $15 million, then turn around and sign Langston Galloway to $8 million, then you turn around and sign Lance Thomas to another $8 million, that right there is a max contract that you just lost because you wanted to sign big money to some role players. All right. Now, I will say there is one exception. You can give a star player max money. You can give max money to a Clay, a Jimmy Butler, a Brad Beal, someone who isn't really top 7 or 8. You can give them max money only if you already have a superstar, only if you already have a player who's top 5, top 7, top 8. You know what I'm saying? If there was no Steph Curry on the Warriors, there's no way I'm giving Klay Thompson a max contract because Klay alone is not winning me a ring. Obviously, the Knicks offseason could have been better. You could have landed KD. You could have landed Kyrie. You could have landed Zion. But I want to give them credit for not hitting the panic button and turning around and spending 4 years, $190 million on Jimmy Butler or Tobias Harris. Because if you turn around and spend $190 million 4 years on Jimmy Butler or Tobias Harris, all that promises you is what? 8 seed at best. You're probably going to be a lottery team, but I guess you could be an 8 seed and get knocked out the first round if you really want to. And now all you really have left is cap for one more max contract. So instead of panicking, they kind of hit the reset button because all of their big money contracts are only 2-year contracts, which put them right in position to make another run at the 2021 free agency, which will be pretty stacked. So I'm not going to kill the Knicks right now. I'm not going to do that. We have to wait and see. Now let's go ahead and turn our attention to the 2019 NBA champion Toronto Raptors because you're kind of in a pickle now. You lose a top 3 player in Kawhi Leonard. So what do you do now? Do you go into a full rebuild and build around Pascal Siakam? Do you try to get him some help? Not to mention, I feel like the jury's still out on Pascal Siakam. Yes, he did ball out this year. He did play big in the playoffs, and he was the second best player on the championship-winning Toronto Raptors. But this is really his first big season. There's not really any film on Pascal Siakam. He's still catching teams off guard. We don't know how the NBA is going to key in and adjust to a Pascal Siakam. Some guys can go out and put 20 on you one season, come back and put 12 on you the next season because the league has figured you out. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like while he did ball out this year, the jury's still out on Pascal Siakam. I'm not going to crown him as a perennial all-star yet. So being that the jury's still out on Pascal Siakam and you lose Kawhi Leonard, what do you do with the rest of your team now? Do you go into a full rebuild? Do you try to reload? You're not a free agency destination because you haven't landed anyone in free agency. All the best players of your franchise, Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, DeMar DeRozan, you went out and drafted them. You know what I'm saying? You acquired Kawhi via a trade with the San Antonio Spurs. So you're not a free agency market. The best players you've drafted, with the exception of Kawhi Leonard. So what do? Do you move Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol, try to get another top 20 player? Do you move Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby? I think they already moved OG Anunoby, actually. But what do you do now with the rest of your roster? I'm very curious to see what the Raptors are going to do. It's going to be very interesting. Now let's move to the Utah Jazz. I want to take this time to talk about Mike Conley because this might be a bold statement, but I believe Mike Conley is going to miss out on the Hall of Fame just because he's played his entire career in the Western Conference. Because he's in the Western Conference, he hasn't really been to any All-Star games because the West is so deep. You got Steph, you got Russ, you got James Harden. You got so many different point guards. Tony Parker at the beginning of his career, Chris Paul. You got so many point guards stacked in the West that there's kind of no love for Mike Conley. Mike Conley could have been left the Grizzlies and went to, some team in the East and been a perennial all-star in the East. Could have been the second, third best point guard in the East every year and had a better Hall of Fame case. But that's not what this video is about. We're going to talk about the acquisition of Mike Conley to the Utah Jazz. I really like this move. I think the Utah Jazz can now be a top 3 seed. They're not winning any rings, in my opinion, just because they don't really have a top 5 player. Donovan Mitchell isn't really there yet as a superstar. He has great potential, though. But defensively, they're going to be stout. They were already a great defensive team. And now you go out and add a player who I believe is, other than maybe Lonzo Ball or Pat Bev, the best defensive point guard in the NBA. And he can turn around and give you 20 and 8 assists. Really great acquisition. And what that's also going to do is that's going to kind of take off the offensive load from Donovan Mitchell, give him a break. My only questions about the Jazz is what's their ceiling? Is the Western Conference Finals their ceiling? Because I have really big questions about their star power. When you run up into the Lakers, who's going to stop LeBron? Who's going to stop AD? You go up into the Clippers, who's going to stop Kawhi? Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley are too small to stop Kawhi or Paul George. Who's going to stop Giannis? You know what I'm saying? So I just have questions about their wings and their star power as a whole. Is Donovan Mitchell going to become Dwayne Wade in the next couple of years? Because that's really the only way that I can see them really challenging for a title. But they're going to be a great team for the next couple of years. So don't be surprised when the Utah Jazz featuring Spadad Mitchell, I think that's how you pronounce it, Spadad, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley in the Stifle Tower. Don't be surprised they end up being the number 1 seed in the West, because that team is going to be great defensively and they're going to be a great regular season team. But we'll see if they can get over the hump in the playoffs next year. All right, so let's get to the Houston Rockets, who made a big move in trading Chris Paul, replacing him with Russell Westbrook. And now, to be honest, there's only one way this can work, in my opinion. There's only one way I can see this working. And that's if James Harden can convince Russ to play off the ball and Russ can develop back into a league average or slightly above average shooter. If Russ can give you 34, 35, 36% from 3 and he can be effective without the ball in his hands, I believe this can work. But I believe that James Harden has to be the primary decision maker, and they have to run the fast break in order to get James Harden and Russell Westbrook enough touches. So now we're going to move into my next 3 teams, which, excluding the Milwaukee Bucks, I believe these 3 teams have the highest chances of winning championships over the next 2 to 4 years. And we're going to start that with the Brooklyn Nets. Now let me make this abundantly clear. No KD, no ring to Brooklyn. Brooklyn ain't winning shit next year with just Kyrie. They might be a 7 or 8 seed, or they probably end up being a lottery team. But Nick Wright of First Things First on Fox Sports made a great point that I agree with. And that is, this is the first situation that Kyrie has chosen. This is the first team Kyrie has chosen. The first co-star Kyrie has chosen, because he was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers, traded to Brooklyn. He was already there when LeBron got there. He didn't ask to be traded to Boston to play with Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, and Jaylen Brown. He chose to go to Brooklyn with Kevin Durant. So to me, that means Kyrie's morale will be a lot higher, which I'm sure will make him a much better player on the court versus how he performed last year. They won't have that chemistry problem or those locker room problems because him and KD are apparently close. So I think that's gonna make the mesh a lot better and make them a better duo on the court. Assuming Kevin Durant comes back 85-90%, which I highly believe can happen, because when you look at KD, he suffered the worst injury a basketball player can suffer, being a torn Achilles. But he's not Kobe, he's not Russell, he's not John Wall, he's not one of these players whose game is built around athleticism. KD is a 7-footer who can pull up from 40. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have to take you to the rack and hit a windmill on you. He doesn't have to do that because he can just spot up and shoot it. You know what I'm saying? 85% of Kevin Durant is still a top 5 player in the NBA. All right. The only question I have about the Brooklyn Nets is, where are their points going to come in the front court? They don't have a big who can really score to me. Jared Allen is a rim protector. DeAndre Jordan is also a rim protector and can, get putbacks and whatnot. But they don't have a real stretch four or a big who can score in the low block or space the floor. So I believe that should be their next acquisition, getting someone of the Jabari Parker, Chris Bosh, Kevin Love, someone of that ilk to space the floor and be that third option to a Kyrie and a Kevin Durant. Let's talk about the Lakers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the acquisition of Anthony Davis because with him and LeBron, that's a deadly duo who complement each other very well. But I'm going to go straight to my questions about the Lakers. Who's going to defend the other team's guard? Who's the starting lineup? Is LeBron going to run point? Are going to have Avery Bradley run point? Is Anthony Davis going to be the center or the power forward? I believe that the best possible Lakers lineup is this: LeBron, Danny Green, Avery Bradley, Kyle Kuzma, Anthony Davis. But with Anthony Davis telling everyone he but he prefers not to play the center position, which I can understand, I believe it should be Avery Bradley, LeBron, Danny Green, AD, and JaVale McGee. Just start JaVale McGee until Boogie, feels more comfortable in his legs, feels, a little bit more healthier. Maybe start him mid-year, but it should be JaVale McGee as a rim protector and rebounder starting out. So with Anthony Davis not deciding to play the center position, that's going to knock Kyle Kuzma out of the starting lineup. Now, I believe you have to start Danny Green, and you have to heavily consider starting Avery Bradley because Avery Bradley is going to guard the other team's point guard. LeBron, if he starts point guard, is not guarding Steph. He's not guarding Russ. He's not guarding James Harden. He's not guarding these point guards because LeBron's not going to do that all that running around. We saw last year, LeBron kind of chilling the paint and, kind of not really trying on defense. So I don't really want LeBron checking the other team's point guards who's running off of picks, running up and down the court. You probably want Avery Bradley to do that. You don't really want Danny Green to check the other team's point guard because he's your most consistent shooter in the starting lineup. And when you have him run around the court after Steph Curry, that's going to kill his legs and kind of hurt his offensive game, kind of hurt his jump shooting ability because he might be tired from running around chasing Steph Curry and Klay Thompson all night. So if you do start LeBron at point, I think you have to put him defensively on the wing, which means you have to start Avery Bradley. I think this collection of talent can win a ring for the Los Angeles Lakers, but I just have a lot of questions about their lineup. Also, don't be surprised if they make some changes around the midseason and acquire another guard or another shooter, because that's another question I have about the Lakers. Danny Green is really their only consistent shooter. LeBron can shoot, Kyle Kuzma can shoot, AD can shoot, Boogie can shoot, but Danny Green is the only one who I can see shooting around 40% for the entire season. They were a terrible three-point shooting team last year, so don't be surprised if they acquire a Joe Harris or a Marco Bellinelli sometime next year because shooting is something they definitely need to add. And now finally we're going to get to the team who I feel like pretty much won free agency and the team who I also feel like has the best chance of winning a ring next in the NBA, the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, what more do you want? You want a great front office? Check. You want a great coach? Check. Top 5 player? Check. Top 10 player as a sidekick? Check. Great role players who can hit threes and play consistent defense? Check, check, check. I mean, you go and get Kawhi for virtually nothing. You steal Paul George from the Oklahoma City Thunder. You keep Pat Bev. You keep Lou Will. You keep Montrezl Harrell. Like, your role players are top tier. And now you have a superstar with a great, who might actually be the best number 2 in the league now in Paul George. Like, this team is pretty stacked. I would not be surprised if they won the ring if they won a ring next year. For all those reasons I just named, it seems like Jerry West did it again. I mean, these are the reasons why I feel like the Los Angeles Clippers not only won the offseason, but now have the best case to win next year's championship. Because unlike the Brooklyn Nets, I don't have to ponder if the best player is going to be 95, 100% coming off an injury. Unlike the Lakers, I don't have to worry about lineup and roster minutes. The team is just completely still intact with the addition of 2 top 10 players, one of them being a top 5 player. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to check out my video. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my takes about the 2019 NBA offseason. Go ahead and do me a favor, drop a like, subscribe to my channel. If you feel like I've missed anything over the offseason, if you feel like I said something ludicrous, or if you feel like you really agree with something I said, go ahead and drop it into the comment section. Give me your opinions. I love to hear your feedback. And once again, thank you for checking out my channel. Y'all have a great day. Have a great weekend. Stay blessed.